Yes. Yay. Hello.
Hi.
Aw. It's always so funny to like reconnect with someone over live. It's been a minute.
Yeah, besides the call last week, which was so potent. I loved that.
I know. There's nothing better than gathering with a dream squad of embodiment guides and just being real
We're like, hey, can we drop in real quick for the next hour? And
and reflect each other in poetic and embodied ways that feed our inner children and
yeah,
soul.
true testament of this work works.
This work works. Um, Speaking of, do you want to have a couple minutes of a little dance before
Yeah.
we chat? Okay. Everyone here, welcome. Madison and I are going to drop into a medicine story. That's how I'm thinking of it.
Mm.
Because I feel like when we tell our own stories of liberation, it's medicine for the entire world. And thank you, Madison, for being open to have this like raw, authentic, who knows what's going to happen, and it's perfect conversation with me about your wild embodiment journey. Such an honor. So before we do that, let's dance.
Let's dance.
Let me know if you can hear this song. It's not the beginning and end of the matter. Adapting yourself to the dance, widen your borders. Claps and voices shifting, steering wonder. Divine laughter is all confined in a circle. You possess the gem, you manifest norm, infinite harmony. You possess the gem, you manifest norm, infinite harmony. Aliso silbeo imala, yo imala, simbali panti borana, imala nano imala. Aliso silbeo imala, yo imala, simbali panti borana, imala nano imala. Yes. Mhm.
Yummy. I love that song. Thank you.
Yes, I'm obsessed. This is called Way Mala by Ira D. Maybe I'll put it in the comments later for folks.
Mhm.
So much life-giving, life-giving music. Okay.
Oh.
Feels so good in my body to be with you. So, I, I met you online 3 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot has happened in 3 years, but our mutual friend shared about this program I was offering vocal toning, and then in comes Madison, just like, yeah, how I remember you in that time is just being like in this space of having your heart cracked open and being so open to receive something new and try something new and just like I am willing, I am here, I will try this. And witnessing how you received the embodiment course and went on to wild embodiment and just how you brought that into your life and shape shifted so many things from a facilitator's point of view was just like yes, 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 cheering you on and watching this evolution. So I'm curious how that felt for you. Like, was that your first embodiment program when you joined? And like, yeah, what was that first couple of journeys like for you?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Haley. I have tears brought to my eyes just remembering that time and
Mm,
hearing you reflect on how open I was
mhm,
and feeling that in my body, how much I needed that work and this work
mhm.
was deeply impactful and really changed my life. So thank you, prefacing. And the first few rounds of it, so I started with vocal toning, which was about a month, 4 weeks. And then I went on to wild embodiment, and I knew in just the short vocal toning container that this work was really resonating with me because I had been involved in various types of therapy for several years,
Mhm,
and I didn't feel the impact of that work as much as I felt the impact of this work in such a short period of time.
mhm,
And it felt like I was opening my eyes for the first
mhm.
time. And I didn't know if this work resonated with everybody, but I know that it resonated with me.
Yeah.
And it was like learning a language that I already knew
Mm. Yeah.
and yeah, really, really changed my life. And I don't use that lightly. Um, I found it during a time of grief when I was searching, and I actually had been trying to hire a talk therapist, like you know, a generic therapist, and there were all these roadblocks to
Mhm,
finding a therapist,
mhm,
and every single one wasn't working out, like intro call and I just wasn't feeling it, or
mhm,
they told me they couldn't work with me for whatever reason, or this, that, the other. And
mhm,
finding you was just clear. And it felt like a big invitation and a big yes to try something different. And I'm so glad that I did.
me too.
Yeah.
Yes, when you say like this works for me, I don't think it or I don't know if it works for everybody, but for me, like what is it about your cosmology or constitution do you think where like embodiment work just gets into the places where talk therapy just wasn't reaching?
Mm, yeah, I would say I'm a very self-aware person.
Hmm.
And awareness, and I felt like I was kind of churning through a lot of the same content, and nothing was actually, I didn't feel uplifted. I
Yeah.
didn't feel um, like transformation was happening. Maybe I would gain some insight that would trickle in, but overall, I felt the same in my body. I felt the same
Hmm.
triggers, the same panic, the same closures.
Yeah.
And this work resonated with me because I didn't have to use words. I could use words, but I didn't have to use words.
Hmm.
And as much as I love communication, I realized the communication in my body was more intelligent and had more information to offer me than I could
Hmm.
contrive in my mind and
Yeah.
just with my emotions. And talking began to,
The score.
yeah, that's one way of saying it.
Yeah.
Um, I just found that my body had a lot more to say
Yeah.
than I could say in a therapy session where I'm talking solely.
Yeah.
And my body started to give me this information and feedback.
Hmm.
And it didn't mean that it was necessarily easy to contact those places that felt sticky,
Oh yeah.
but I felt like the space that you held and the permission slip that you give people to just let it be there, let yourself watch and witness what comes up in a
Hmm.
non-prescriptive way,
Mm.
really gave me the support to
Mm.
go
Yeah.
with the content.
Absolutely. That's such a key moment when our ego can come in or our mind. And I'm like you, practicing maybe even hyper self-awareness, you know. So when it comes to talking to my therapist, I felt like they were taking more notes on like how I was supporting myself. They're like, "Oh, wow." I'm like, "Yeah." Like I really got the awareness
Yeah.
piece down. I could probably talk circles around you for a few years. But when we drop deeper into the subconscious, and there's this moment where questions can come up like, am I doing this right? Like, it's in that unknown spaciousness where I think as we learn, and first someone else gives us permission, but then we start to give ourselves permission of like, the way is the way, the way is the way. Trusting my body with each experience. Oh my God, where you took me, I had no idea. Thank you. Whoa, look at this material, look at this resource, this inspiration, and just learning to trust our body and that language, which is more multidimensional than our mind, who is so good at the logical, can do. And then they start to team up in different ways and like, what's up? I honor your gifts, I honor your intelligence. It's just different than mine. And I think why this is so radical is the times that we live in, we're taught that that body wisdom is invalid, mistrustful, dangerous, out of control. Like we have been taught to grip onto control. And so to practice embodiment and somatic practices that loosen that grip and that it's safe not to know, it's safe not to need to go anywhere right now, but just come into where I
Yeah.
am. And that's where I want to be. Like it's so simple. As you said, it's a remembering a language and it's also radical. Like it wasn't straightforward for me either. It took a lot of practice and support of someone being like, "You're safe. You're safe. You're safe
Mhm.
to be authentic in this moment. It's okay.
Mhm.
What's in there? Stay with it, you know."
Yeah.
So yeah, you went through vocal toning and then you joined us in Wild. Do you remember that time?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I just want to make a comment on how wild that time was. I was in the middle of a 5-year relationship ending in a
Mm,
really kind of intense way, in a way that my wounding was very, very activated. And um, I decided to join Wild when I was departing that relationship. And I also was deciding to move from the state of Washington to back to my home state of California. And I took Wild with me on the move.
yeah.
And it was my grounding force.
Mm,
And I think for people that are going through big transitions, it can really be that steady anchor of checkpoints. Okay, how am I doing this week? How am I doing this week? And at the time, it was 10 weeks long.
mhm,
Now we moved it up to 13, which I think is a great choice because I wanted more by the end of it.
mhm.
But for those 10 weeks, it was such an anchor for me to have that check in, to have the accountability that I was going to come back to this group of people who were so welcoming at a time where
Mm,
I felt so alone and overwhelmed with what I was processing.
yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm realizing this is something I've heard a lot from people in Wild, where that Wild was this grounding rod for them in times of transition. And life be like that, especially these days. Like a lot of us are coming upon these times of like things asking to shed, things asking to shift. So to have that stability of like these 2 hours once a week, I'm going to come into my familiar group and connect with my body. I don't have to prepare anything. I just have to show up. And my work is presence and just experiencing how that process can be so life-giving in a way that our other practices aren't always, that are more like self-soothing, self-care. But what about getting really honest with all layers of yourself, like getting honest?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm. I love what you said about it's different from self-soothing and
Yeah.
it's different from self-care. And in a way, it is still both. The
Yeah.
result can still is ultimately still both,
Mm-hmm.
but it is time carved out to go deep. And I think the willingness to be honest with ourselves is probably the hardest part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And sometimes when I'm alone or like in an echo chamber of my journal or something, right? Like it's helpful, but when we're in that space to witness each other and have someone's compassionate and like objective reflection, it's like, oh my God, that's what you're seeing, that's what you're hearing. This is your perspective. Oh my God, wow. Like, I was seeing it in this totally different way. It's like this opportunity to be in this brave container and receive. I think the reflections and the witnessing is just like probably the most powerful aspect, because you can do the embodiment on your own, even though I find it difficult to like sometimes stay present or stay accountable. So you're held to say, I'm definitely going to do my embodiment practice, and then this witnessing aspect, which just seems to amplify the evolution and kind of like support it along. Especially, we get wounded in relationship often and we heal in relationship. So just by having these other beings on this journey with you, to me, like there is no other way I ever want to heal, you know?
Yeah.
Yes, I love doing my solo work and being out in nature. Like, yes, of course, all of that. And like the group work, the group ceremony, like I'm dedicated to that.
Mm-mm-mm. I really feel your passion and your excitement for offering that group container. And I can also attest that the group is powerful. I mean, Wild Embodiment, and then I went through the school that you went through too, Tamalpa Institute, and just shout out to them because they're holding it down
Yeah.
with some really powerful group work too. And like you said, the objective witnessing is so important because the language we use around that is really protected so that we're not projecting our own experiences onto somebody else. And that's a really
Yes.
key part of it. And just sharing what you noticed, sharing what you observed, the images,
Mhm.
the what you imagine. And all of these aspects can really offer the person who's being vulnerable to not only be seen, but to have new ways of thinking about their own content.
Yeah.
And I know for me, when I'm sharing something in these group settings, I can have a very linear way of seeing
Mhm.
it. And somebody reflects to me, well, this is what I saw and this is what I imagined. It's like my brain is shifting onto a different track. And
Yeah.
often that can become very resourceful and very
Yeah.
self-soothing.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you for bringing in Tamalpa Institute. Madison and I both went to school there. I remember you were like, "So where did you go to school?" After Wild Embodiment, and I was like, "Dude, go to Tamalpa Institute if you're called." They really train you in nonviolent communication, but in this like creative, poetic, permission slip giving, embodied way that we do in Wild. And it's so brilliant because how often are we sharing our tender heart with someone and then their response, actually, we feel ourselves closed or get defensive or like, that's not, no, that's actually not what I meant. Like, I think you're misunderstanding me. And the way that we communicate in this course is to protect the space like around your soul process and honoring that this all is welcome and needs to be here, and I'm going to reflect things to you that I have permission to that won't activate you to bring up defenses. It's like honoring that each one of us has this creative power to work with our psyche and to use projection in a healing way rather than a damaging way. And that is super life changing. And for me, has changed how I can show up in my intimate relationships and friendships and just like model this in day to day.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Yeah, I really love what you said about modeling it and the way that it translates to our personal relationships. And I've noticed my communication style has changed radically, like taking a lot more responsibility
Mm,
for my experience and being
yes.
able to share that in a way that feels like it's still my experience and I can be vulnerable in a relationship with somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So after that first wild embodiment year, do you remember like the life art bridge, the palpable shifts that you started to feel in your body and your life that caused you or guided you to deepen this path? And now you're being trained as a somatic therapist. Like, what was that kind of takeaway experience that became this like guiding force for you?
Mm. Yeah, wow, that's such a powerful question. Um, well, there was a lot of tendrils that were at play. I think on one hand, I was looking for something that really spoke to me and really energized me
Mm,
coming out of this work. Not to say it's all I could think about, but I noticed the ways it was merging into the life art experience. Like my day to day felt different. I felt
mhm,
more grounded. I felt more attuned to subtlety in my body.
mhm,
And I felt more inspired to create. And from there, from finishing Wild for the first time, I decided to go on. Also was adjacently interested in breath work and went on to train in that, and then was really inspired to facilitate. And I began facilitating these breathwork pranayama circles in groups and online, and we even collaborated a little bit with
we
that.
did. did.
amazing. And, um, and I always just kept coming back to this work. I went through Tamalpa, their first year, level one, personal embodiment, and that was beautiful and gave me the experiential of seeing and feeling and doing the work for myself. And
Hmm.
then noticed that I wanted something more grounded and more academic and more understanding the works of like what's happening here? Like why does this work for so many people when it's such a non-prescriptive
Hmm.
offering? Nobody's telling me what I should be working on, or nobody's telling me to go into this specific trauma or anything like that. So why is it that it's so approachable for so many people? And I wanted to understand why this modality really works.
Yeah.
And so I guess just build that was like my foundation was just going into the work myself.
Hmm.
Beyond that, I wanted to build on, well, academically, how can I be able to talk about
Yeah,
this more? And how can
absolutely.
I reach more people
Hmm.
um, in a broader demographic
Hmm.
and et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera. So it's just been like a thread that I've been pulling.
Hmm.
And it's led me to some really beautiful places and led me to meeting with you. And now we're more like in real life friends, even though you live far. But
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Thank you for speaking to that piece, because I hear a lot of people reaching out, like now that I'm facilitating facilitators and kind of pulling back the veil and being like, this is what I do and why I do it and how I do it. Now, please go forth and do it. um, so, a lot of people are reaching out with that inspiration to learn how to facilitate. And I can relate to that because when I get into something, I'm like, the best way I'm going to learn about this is by learning to teach it. So that's definitely how my learning type is drawn. And at the same time, I recommend that people start with wild embodiment because that fuel of going through your own embodied transformation process, that's going to become the fuel for your path. And I truly believe like our compassion can only grow as far as if we've grown it for ourselves and like the depths that we've been able to find in our own body, heart, mind system. And going through that and sense making and coming through and being like, oh, maybe I don't understand this. And maybe that's actually essential and perfect first before we can like dissect things in an academic way. Some people go the opposite way. They start academic and then they have to find their way to embodiment. Otherwise, why would you keep doing this work? There's no like life force or soul food in it. For me, I always felt like I have to go the embodied path because it's to go academic and like first and not have the soul food or the personal experience to enrich my why I'm here and like my guiding light. It's just it's too much work. Like I wouldn't still be here, you know.
yeah,
So
that's so.
yeah. And now, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna make a cheeky comment and just say my most powerful somatic experiences didn't happen from reading a book.
Right. Yeah. And reading books is awesome. I do it all the time still. I'm obsessed with somatic healing. Um, and yeah, that's not it. It's reading about it, but it's not it. Yeah, and now you're joining again as a guest teacher. So I just want to open up maybe the last little chapter of this live to offer the opportunity for you to talk about that and like why awaken the inner child? Why is that alive for you right now and something that you want to offer to the world?
Yeah, thank you. I feel so grateful and tender when I talk about
Hmm.
this. And I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to offer this workshop in Wild
Yeah.
Embodiment. And for those of you who don't know, this is going to be included for the people that join Wild Embodiment. And it's also going to be available as a drop-in for those that don't do Wild. I'll preface that.
Mhm.
And the inner child work, I feel, is really pivotal for adults who are looking to deepen their connection with themselves and their intuition and being able to access, address, and meet our own needs first and foremost, and even discovering what those needs are. Because sometimes we're not in touch with what we actually need. We might think of certain qualities of what we need, but our inner child often has, I don't want to say different needs than those. They could be similar, but um, often has more tender needs, more,
Mhm.
more witnessing needs, more being with, more being held and just seen.
Yeah.
And as an adult coming into the world and being in romantic relationships and work relationships and parental relationships, so much of our wounding comes from our little child, from these moments where our needs weren't met
Mhm.
when we were young.
Mhm.
And we've built protective mechanisms in order to keep ourselves safe.
Yeah.
Safe, yes, and safe. And sometimes those safety nets that we've created aren't adaptive to who we are now as an adult. And
Mhm.
so I feel like building that bridge and connecting to our inner child and repairing, if there needs to be repairing, a relationship to them is crucial for a healthy adult to relate to ourselves, to relate to others, and to be
Mhm.
able to start addressing our own needs in a more holistic way and a less prescribed
Yeah.
way, in a way that is truly um, connected to our deepest resource. And so this workshop is going to dive into being able to start that communication and build that bridge and create a relationship with the dialogue between the perspective of your inner child communicating to your adult self and
Yeah.
your adult self being able to communicate to your inner child and forming that conversation
Mhm.
so that we have tangible tools
Mhm.
to use in an everyday way to strengthen that.
Yeah. Dude, life changing, world changing. Like, I know you as a fellow owl medicine woman. There's been so many times in my life where I feel like I have these special eyes on where I can just zoom in and see people acting from their wounded child and they don't know. And I'm just like, the compassion there of like, oh, you're in your 3-year-old right now, honey. I mean, we see that in our freaking world leaders. Like, oh, you're stuck in your 3-year-old, dude.
Yeah.
Wow, wow. And then in my own journey, I don't know about you, but I often find there's like a specific age where I have to keep coming back to, and that like really where some of the core things happened. And I've found for sure for me how embodiment is everything there because we are often not even speaking at that point. It's all about the felt sense and how we developed. Could you share a little bit like how does inner child work relate to embodiment?
Yeah. Let me just feel that.
Yeah.
I feel like our little one is the one who is the most expressed and who is the most unabashed, um, non like unapologetic. And I remember as a child crawling and making animal sounds, and I had no perception of judgment affecting me.
Mm.
And I feel like slowly, naturally, as an adult, we can start to internalize these judgments that culture and society and
Mhm.
people impose on us, and it puts us into more of a freeze state, or it can.
Mhm.
Some people are gifted with their wild embodiment from the time they're born and they just keep continuing on. That wasn't me. That wasn't me.
Me either.
I can definitely say that the older that I got, especially coming into teenage years, I really started to freeze in my body and hold. And I don't blame myself for that anymore, but
Mhm.
inner child work is crucial to unlocking our embodiment, because they're the wise one who would move and shake and process in a way that was authentic and um, enriching for their well-being.
Mhm.
As an example, when we get hurt, we just cry and we cry and we cry and we cry until we're done
Mhm.
as a child.
Mhm.
And as an adult, we rationalize, well, I don't need to cry. Well, this isn't the place to cry. And what will they think of me? And all of these things that prevent us from just completing that cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel like bringing the inner child into that is just giving us ourselves that permission that we inherently had to
Mm.
complete those cycles and
Yeah.
to let go of the judgments that have formed over time.
Yes. Beautiful. Ah, thank you. Yeah, another aspect of this that resonates for me is like a lot of my inner child stuff is it's more like inner infant, even in the womb or infant, where I had some very basic needs, which are like touch and being held and rocked and attended to, just presence, touch, these things that when I can tap into, like, oh, there is this thread of fear that is so old and so young that I need to slow down and build the holding capacity within my own body, which has been such a journey of my embodiment. I mean, I had disassociated from my pelvis. I wasn't really in my back body. The way that my energy could physiologically hold my energy and my tender parts was compromised because of that freeze and exiting some places to feel a sense of control and safety. So, in coming back into literally physiologically my breathing, opening up the space in my pelvis and inhabiting my back body so that I can feel that support, creates the container to hold my inner baby. Like, I literally have to lean back, breathe deep, hold myself, and just like rock and be like, baby, I got you. I got you. Let me sing to you. Like, and that for me has been huge. So I think when we're able to identify the felt sense, we don't have to know the age, but we'll just be able to, like you said, start to get to know the need, because it's very different if we're a 5-year-old that needs to throw a tantrum,
Mhm.
or if we're an infant that needs to be held, and just like, I think when we drop into the embodiment of it, and not quite the linear space, but the nonlinear intuitive mind, and we just trust where our body is guiding us, then we can find these places where our brain, my brain would have never made sense with, I need to go to the womb and like, no, it was a felt sense in my body, and suddenly these images are coming to me that don't make rational sense, but as I followed them, I healed, and I found parts of myself that were exiled and scared and just welcomed them home. And I'm still doing that work. I did this ancestral meditation with Nala Walla. Shout out to Nala at Expansion Festival. I was like drumming and singing for her and also going through the meditation. And ancestor work for me can be really important with meeting those needs that we didn't have met or are still learning how to meet ourselves. So this ancestor just came in right behind me. She was like this big mama and was like, "Let me hold you," just full of joy. And I just like leaned into her and was like, "Oh, I am held." So yeah, I'm in awe of the mystery of it, and then when we come out of a journey and we start to create that life art bridge and sense make and say, "Oh my God, this," and I have this memory, and okay, I can start to make sense of it. But as we talked about earlier, not going top down because we'd never reach the depths that we're capable of as our own healer.
Yeah. Plants really grow from the bottom up. You need good roots in order
Mm.
to grow tall.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone who popped in. So excited to be dancing on this life journey with you and through Wild Embodiment again this fall. And we're doing a free class tomorrow. So comment if you want to come to class with us and other brilliant embodiment guides. And then, of course, Wild Embodiment begins on October 18th. Bless you. Mwah.
Mm.
So reach out if you want to join us. We'd be honored to be with you in the process of your ever-evolving wild embodiment, natural, organic allowance of your brilliance. So,
Allowance of your
yay.
brilliance. So beautifully said, Haley.
Yay. Okay, we'll see you there, Jay. And Jam, we'll see you there. Mwah.
Thank you so much for holding this conversation, and I feel enlivened remembering my times in wild embodiment and the gifts that it's really offered me to my life. I feel like I got my life back through these courses, and I am not somebody who loves the online format, but the potency that is transmitted through these groups is unparalleled. So I would say for anybody that's on the fence, has been thinking about it, big yes for me. And I extend that to others who are curious. And I'm here to answer any questions as well about my experience or anything else.
Nice. Yeah. Thank you for bringing in that about the online platform. I think what shocked me, because we went online during COVID and now we're sticking with it. What shocked me was the potency because it's not like an online class where you're watching the screen. You're being guided into your own body, into your own psyche, and going through this creative journey. So when you return to the group, you are embodied, you are present, you are feeling, and like we feel each other. We grow love. Like I have many clients who are like, we haven't met in person. That's insane. Like I feel like I've hugged you like so many times, because we do the bonds grow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's magic, and you are magic, my friend. I love you.
Love you.
See you tomorrow.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.